I'm doing something a little bit different again, kind of expanding the horizons of my channel. In this case, I've got the Renegade set from Games Workshop, and I'm painting the two Imperial Knights that come with it. And I've been wanting to paint some Imperial Knights for a long time, and I now have 3 that I have to paint. 2 of these and 1 other from another army I'm building. And a bunch of my friends have said, you know, Crispy, I would love to just sit down and watch you paint one day. And they don't know what they're asking for, because I usually paint only for a few minutes a day or for an hour a day at the absolute most. And so what you're going to see is probably about a week's worth of work, or a week's work, 6 or 7 hours worth of work actually, but spread out over a week, but compressed into 20 minutes. And I'm just going to give you a quick voiceover telling you what I'm doing. But right here you just saw I was priming the models, and now I'm going to give it a base coat of Vallejo Model Air's gunmetal gray, or gunmetal, which is a metallic paint. And you'll see I clean my airbrush quite often, because the metallic paint and the primer both just will gum up an airbrush something fierce. But as these are the first times I'm painting an Imperial Knight, sorry, I adjusted myself in my seat here. This is the first time I painted this. I'm following Games Workshop's suggested methods up to a certain point, and I kind of regret that in a way, because the assembly that they suggested does not work out well, either if you're using an airbrush or a strange pose, which I am using both. And here, my other thing, this is my first time ever trying to actually record my painting, so I get the cameras wrong a little bit. I'm going to apologize for that ahead of time, but here I've got the base coat of the just shiny silver on there, and I'm just adding a few bronze pieces as kind of just accents and stuff, so it makes it a little more visually appealing. And because, if it's just the bright chrome metal, it's going to look bad, and especially considering that one of the guys is going to be chaosed out and decrepit, and there was a bit of battle damage that I am, as I said, I am mimicking the suggested painting colors and so on up to a certain point that Games Workshop has for these 2 models. One of them is called the Litany of Destruciton. He's a Imperial Knight that's fallen to chaos, and they're not exactly good at maintaining their stuff, so I wanted him to be they've got him a little nasty, and I wanted him to be really nasty. Like, I wanted it to look like he was just one step away from breaking down altogether. And his pilot's gone somewhat insane, so I wanted his pose to kind of mimic that, where he's a little more clenched in and guarded and so on and so forth. But the undercarriages on Imperial Knights and a lot of other large models of the Games Workshop stuff, they're usually painted in a very simple paint scheme, because they take it, they're nothing more than really a backdrop to the outer armor, which is where you do all your neat stuff. So I'm starting off painting 2 here, but I'm going to finish up only with the Litany of Destruction, the Fallen Chaos one. But since both models are painted exactly the same for the first little bits, I've just decided to do them both here. And I can't remember which color. It was one of the bronze or tin or something like that some company makes. I should have remembered. There it is in the back there. It's a game color. I think tin is what it's called. Oh, I've got it right here next to me, actually. It is game color, Vallejo game color tinny tin. So, and while this part takes a little bit here while I'm doing that, but the next step is going to be putting on a nice thick slathering of Nuln Oil, and that's going to dull down the shininess of the metal that's on there now. And it's also because it's a wash, it's going to seep into all the crevices and bring out a lot of the detail. So that's going to be in a second, but you're going to see later on, and I don't have much time to explain it there, so I want to go ahead and explain it now. Every time I paint something, I try and utilize a new technique, or try something new. In this case, I'm trying 2 new things: a new thinner that I've never used before, as well as a buddy of mine online swears by using Post-it notes for masks. I've never tried it before, and I thought I'd give it an honest try this time and see how it works out. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. And but you'll see, I'll now that you know why I'm doing it, I'll explain more why it didn't work later. But here I am with the wash on there, and I'm not even trying to be neat with it. I am just slathering that over everything. And as you can see on the chainsword there for a brief moment, it really kind of, it highlights all that detail and just adds some contrast to the models. And I'm not trying to be neat with it because my next step is going to be using a dry brush to essentially polish it back up a little bit, and that creates a very realistic looking metal when you use that combination. And so once I've got the one drying over there, and then it doesn't take long to do the all over washes on this, especially considering I'm not trying to be neat. Oh, here was a fun part. I forgot to finish painting that little section there, and whenever you're doing a wash, you don't want to stop because it'll leave a line, and no matter what you do, that line will always be there. And so I had to get it to a point, and it's like, kink in the sphincter, fix that, let it dry real quick, and then put the wash back on. So, and here I am with the Necron compound that that Games Workshop makes, and I'm just dry brushing it. And you can see in the back, you can see kind of the difference. It catches all those raised areas, and just it kind of it leaves the wash in the recesses, but the raised areas, it highlights them, and so you can see, well, no, you can't anymore. Sorry, time lapse. And here's where I actually start working on the armor, and I switch to a point of view shot. This is my first time ever using a point of view shot like this as well, and my muscle memory took over in some areas, and I started bracing it like I always do, forgetting that, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be holding this in front of a camera. And so a few times you'll see me down at the bottom right painting, and you can't really see what I'm doing, but the bright side is those are just things like doing some edge highlighting and armor stuff. It's nothing overly important. But in here, it's just important to get that good first coat of primer down. And there's some people that'll take all this time and mount it to sticks and stuff, and I just use a glove and I'm careful. It takes longer to do that. So here's me trying the post-it note, because I only wanted half of the armor panels to be black, and the post-it notes wouldn't work on the little one, so I used my finger. That didn't work too well either. So, but all is not lost. Once I realized that, first off with the post-it note, it didn't stick, it didn't create a good seal, stuff soaked through it, it looked terrible. It just looked absolutely horrible when it was all done. So, and you can kind of see it there a little bit, especially on the one way in the back. You can see it's just crooked and not nice. So I said, screw it, and you'll see in a few moments, I just went ahead and painted the whole thing the gray color to cover up, and that way it's nice and even again. And just getting a second coat of gray on these to make sure it's nice and smooth. And then I break out my preferred, which one do I do first? Because it's supposed to have an orange. I wanted to have an orange stripe down the main thing, because that's what the storyline for this particular character calls for. And the way I did that was I used Tamiya tape. And in the past, I hear a lot of people talk about Tamiya tape and taping in general, and they say it'll pull up the paint from their model when they go to remove it. And here's trying to give the post-it notes a second chance, saying, okay, well, if that doesn't work, maybe if I just use them as a shield to keep overspray. That didn't work either. But if you take the Tamiya tape, pull off what you need, and then stick it to your table, and then peel it up, and then stick it to a different part of your table, peel it up again, that'll pull enough of the adhesive off that it's not going to take any of your paint off your model. So that's a little, I don't want to say pro tip, because I'm the farthest thing from pro there is, but you also see in that main carapace, I painted the whole thing gray and then put an orange stripe, but here I'm painting it orange. And the reason is because the stripe on this thing is quite pronounced, and there's more orange than gray on this particular thing, so it was easier to mask it in the middle than to try and mask those weird edges around the side. So I painted orange first and then covered it up with gray, and problem solved. And then just a thing on the back, and we're good to go there. So here's how I did the armor place. The armor place is supposed to be half gray, half black. And so I broke out my favorite masking material of all time. That's right, silly putty. I have never found a better masking material than this stuff. You put it where you want, you use your sculpting tools or what have you to put it into the shape you want, and then you paint, It comes right up. It doesn't take any of the paint with it, and you just knead it a little bit, and any of the paint that got onto it is gone. It's great. It is the greatest stuff in the world. It's cheap. You can get it for like $4, and I've had this same silly putty for 3 years now, and I've used it constantly, and I still haven't had to replace it. It's just fantastic. So there you go, kids. Silly putty. And there's me doing kind of the similar thing, orange, and then painting in the black stripe. Now, I messed up there. You can't tell that I messed up, but you won't tell that I messed up until I actually tried to attach it to the model. I had those little kneecaps sideways, so the orange stripe is horizontal instead of vertical, but oh well. I'm just going to chalk that up to chaos, not paying attention to detail. And just getting some of the little edges up there, the ornamentation on the armor and so on and so forth here. This part's always stressful, because ideally you would paint that first and then fill in the middle areas, but if you're using an airbrush you have to do it backwards, so you have to paint a little more careful. And with someone like me who has the world's shakiest hands, that's a bit of an issue. So but I've gotten pretty good at being able to drag it along there and not get it onto the main paint anymore. I used to be real bad, frustratingly so, about that. So starting out with some of the Retributor armor, their new gold color that they use since they released Age of Sigmar. It's a great base coat of gold. It's a nice thick, goes on great, and then I'm going to hit it with some Reichland Flesh Shade, and then follow that up with some Auric Armor Gold to quote-unquote polish it. Now, officially, Games Workshop likes you to use Agrax Earthshade when you're dealing with the Retributor armor. And that's all well and good, but that will allow you to create a nice shiny new gold. If you use Reichland Flesh Shade with it, what happens is it actually creates that old, dirty, antique gold look, and that's what I really wanted to go for. That's just been sitting out in the elements, and while gold itself doesn't rust, sometimes the impurity that's mixed with it can rust, and so I wanted that just kind of nastiness. Again, this whole thing's going to be nasty, and I just wanted that look. And you also notice I'm carefully overpainting a little bit on as far as the shade that gets a little onto the actual model itself in a thin line, and that just creates a bit of contrast between the seams. And here's one of the parts I was talking about where I was painting off screen. My bad, sorry. Here I'm just taking some Agrax Earthshade now, and I'm putting it into the various channels that were molded into these, so that, as well as putting in all the rivets and stuff, just to bring them out so that they don't get lost on there. And doing that across the board. And you didn't see it earlier, but on the face mask there, I took a page out of Games Workshop's book, and I actually damaged the face mask. I cut a big hole in it, and that way, looks like it took a shell to the face or something like that, or, as opposed to an arrow to the knee. And here I am off the screen again. And this is where I use the Auric Armor Gold. I thin it down, and I start brushing it in a way that makes it kind of almost polish up, or, looks like somebody, at least at some point, tried to wipe off some of the grime. And it gives it a really kind of neat, more realistic, tarnished gold look to me. And again, that's just my opinion. It's not my technique. It's just one I've grown to like. You'll find I don't consider myself to be that good of a painter on here, but the stuff that I'm never going to win a golden demon, or at least I don't think I will. But the stuff that I do is very easy for me, who has almost no artistic ability, and as I said, the shakiest hands in the world. So. And the milliput you see in the back there is going to be for the base. I do the bases separate on these guys because it's a pretty big deal. And here I'm just edge highlighting the blacks using a Stegodon scale. That looks really good on a glossy black as a highlight. And again, sorry about the bottom side of the thing, but it's just edge highlighting. You just angle the brush. And there was the other problem. I was using a brand new brush that somebody had sent, that Vallejo had sent me as a sample. Vallejo brushes, not that good, sorry to say. I'll stick with my Winsor, Newton, and Escoda brushes. I like those. Actually, my favorite brush is that new Artificer brush from Games Workshop. I have gone through those because I just use them so much. I've worn them out. They are fantastic little brushes. And compared to their old line of brushes, that is saying a lot, because their old line of brushes is pretty much only good for mixing paint. I would never actually use it to, their shade brushes were good. Let me rephrase that, but their old fine detail brushes and stuff were so bad, I would only use them for mixing paint. And here I'm doing some silver or some rune fang steel to edge highlight the gold, just give it a little bit of a shine. I mean, even nasty gold has shine to it, so. And there I was putting some that new gemstone paint that Games Workshop released. I was using that for the windows and as well as the eye sockets on the model, and it looks fantastic. That new stuff is almost like cheating. And I actually went a few coats on it, and then I did some stuff to it to make it look cloudy, like it hasn't been unpolished and cleaned in a while, and he's just kind of stuck in there. And getting everything ready. Pretty much the last bit here is that little banner that hangs from his grundle, and I want my next step is going to be doing the decals. I avoid decals a lot on a lot of models, just because on the little models it's more trouble than it's worth. But on the larger models, it just wouldn't look right. You've got all these huge areas of just flat paint, and they need the decals on them. And on these, they look really cool, especially they've got some damage weathering on the decals, and I took that and I went even further and did even more weathering on them to just really make them look grody. Like that. And some of them, they tried to scrape off the Imperial symbols and put their own chaos scriptures on there and stuff. And so it was a lot of fun. But the already damaged sigil stuff already made for a good starting point. And so the first step is you go on there, and I for some reason it didn't show up in the video, or oh yeah, that's right, some of the files got corrupted. But the first thing you do is you put on a coat of Ard Coat to gloss everything up. That way when you put the symbols or the shiny stuff on there, it doesn't stand out. And then you put another coat of Ard Coat on there to seal them on place. Once they're sealed in place, you then mat it down with some Lamian medium, and then everything is a nice, consistent finish across the board. And here you just let it sit, for the decals, just let it sit in the water. And once they start coming loose, you put some water on the surface itself, and as long as that surface stays wet, you can keep moving them around and moving around until they get to the point, until you get them to where you like. Then you dab off the stuff, let them dry for about 5-10 minutes, and then seal them over. And so here I'm kind of doing some stuff. So I have, this is blood for the blood god. It really does look like blood. I had some in my hands and it freaked out my wife. But I'm trying to get it out here like somebody was smearing blood on there with their chaos symbols and so on and so forth. Just trying to, and then I wanted some grodiness on there. You can see I'm pointing at the screen like a moron. I did some weathering on the orange stripes already, just to look like they had been chipped off a little bit. And here I decided to freehand it. But again, you can tell right off the bat my freehanding not that great, but hey, I wound up fixing it a bit more as time went by, and did some other little fun tricks. You get a bunch of it on your brush, and then you flick your finger across it, and it'll create splatters. It looks like some paint just, like you hit something and it just splattered up onto it. And so I've got those in various spots, and now I'm adding some scratches. And the funny thing is, when you get it all in a nice pristine point, it almost breaks your heart to go and start weathering it to make it all nasty. But first thing I'm doing is doing some dry sponging, I guess is the best way to put it. I took some sponge, put some Rhinox hide on it, and then dabbed it off, and then hit it on the corners of the models. And then I'm doing the same thing again here, but with some lead belcher. And here I'm got some airbrush, and I'm putting some soot, and it's over there because where the vents are, so that because got that dirty engine coming out there, and it's doing some stuff. And now I'm putting some mud on the some mud and dirt on his legs and areas where it would normally accumulate. Getting that, yeah, you can see there now I'm starting to really get that nastiness on there, make it really just seem like it has not been maintained. And there I did finally find a good use for the damn post-it notes. That way it didn't create the layout of the shield. But you also saw there I kind of temporarily stuck a symbol. You'll see I actually broke the symbol off. I did that on purpose, so it looks like they were trying to remove it. But I wanted to show that, okay, you know, that was more of a recent thing, so it still has the outline of the old symbol. And I just did that by using another one of the symbols I had as a template, or as a stencil, and put that on there. And then I just kind of freehanded around there to give it a little more gunk. Then I'm using one of my favorite paints that Games Workshop makes, and that's Typhus Corrosion. It's made to be used. It's a very gritty paint. It seems like it's actually got sand in it. And using it in conjunction with their Riser Rust, and here's the finished model. Using it in conjunction with a Riser Rust really does give a very realistic rust thing, and I put it in all the crevices and cracks and stuff. But that's pretty much it. That's the Litany of Destruction, all destructed up and painted, and that's, like I said, about a week. It took me about a week in total, or, you know, week. When all said and done, it was a week. It was about 7-8 hours all total. So thank you everybody for watching. Appreciate you stopping by. If you like this, you want to see more painting videos like this, give me a thumbs up. If you want, if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear it. And if you could do me one more favor, if you could have a nice day, I'd appreciate it. We'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen.